Hello friends, Rick Carpenter here. In this video, I want to talk about the cost of cancer. Uh, Many of us are afraid of it. Some of us are dealing with it, whether ourselves or family. And there are some interesting things that you need to know about the cost of cancer and what your options are. So please watch this video. I go over some interesting information about what you can do about it, how you can both protect yourself from something catastrophic like cancer and also save yourself a lot of money on your health premiums. Hello everyone, Rick Carpenter here. I just wanted to take this opportunity to share some information with you about the cost of cancer. Now, this is a difficult subject for a lot of people. Even as I create this video, I have a family member who is fighting cancer. Fortunately, they are doing well, and we believe he will beat it, but it's an ugly subject. It scares people, understandably. Cancer is the leading cause of death in the nation. But I wanted to shed some light on what things typically really cost with cancer, because a lot of the fear comes from the traditional, extremely inefficient medical community and insurance system that we have in place. We hear of ridiculous large amounts of money being spent. And what I want to do is perhaps inject a little dose of reality, at least from my perspective about this. So hopefully you can see that some of the alternative insurance options available to you there will make more sense, because the traditional major medical system that we have in place now is extremely inefficient. It's bloated. Providers exploit it. They bill way too much money, and there are no watchdog groups in place for medical insurance billing below Medicare. Medicare has good watchdog systems in place, but below 65 for traditional healthcare, providers can bill and basically cheat the system as much as they want to, and there's no one to stop them. The only way that you can protect yourself is if you do it, if you become an advocate for yourself, or if you belong to an insurance organization that is willing to do that for you, because they have your interest at heart too. It saves them money. So I'm going to show you some information that might be interesting to you about cancer and the cost of it. Okay. First of all, I'm going to go to a website called asbestos.com. This is a website that was developed about people who contract cancer because of exposure to asbestos. Now, this top paragraph here under surgery talks about how the lung cancer surgery is comparable in terms of its cost because of where the cancer is located and the type of surgery, and it has a typical average cost of about just under $40,000. Okay. Below that, if we look at chemotherapy here, it talks about chemo can be as high as $30,000 over an 8-week period. Okay, those are scary numbers when you look at them on the surface. Okay, but we're going to talk further, and hopefully they won't seem so scary. I'm going to go to the AARP website where they talk about cancer here, and in this second paragraph here, it says the average cost for treatment can run in the $150,000 range. Yes, that is frightening. That's a lot of money. But that's also the amount that providers want to bill for these services, not necessarily what they are going to receive from insurance companies. Okay? I next want to talk about the kinds of expenses that are involved. Of course, provider visits, going to your doctor, lab tests, the blood tests, and all of that. Clinical visits for treatments. When you go in for chemo, you go in for radiation. The actual going to the doctor, going to the hospital for the procedures, radiology, imaging, radiation treatment, in addition to chemo, which is a drug, the hospital stay. If you have to have surgery to remove cancer, that can cost. And then there's always some follow-up care at home, because you can recover at home. It's a whole lot less costly than recovering in a hospital room. But these are some of the costs to consider, and when you add these up, it can total up to a large amount of money if you are in the extremely inefficient major medical environment. I have seen bills exceed $1 million for people who had cancer. And it's not because that's what it really should cost. It's because our completely, I guess I should not use the word corrupt, but I sure want to, but our exorbitant and inefficient and unregulated system allows that kind of billing. Okay. Now, I want to show you this chart here. On the top, it talks about how patient out-of-pocket costs totaled $3.9 billion. Okay, but what I want to do is, that's how much the individual people would pay, okay? But I want to divide that number into the actual 1.7 million new patients for cancer each year. And that number then, when you divide 3.9 billion into this 1.7 million new cancer incidents, that's less than $2,300 per person, if my math is correct. So it's not as frightening as it seems. That's, you know, under $2,500 per person. Insurance is covering the rest. Okay. But now what I want to do is I also want to share with you some pages on a website called healthcarebluebook.com. I really like this site a lot. It sheds the light on what things really should cost. So I'm going to go to the first one here. We're going to talk about radiation therapy. Okay. A typical radiation treatment, fair price, $756. Now, what this range here, the range from $510 to upwards of $2,500, what this is showing is that in my metropolitan area, which is Provo, Utah, this is the range of actual prices that I could go and pay for radiation treatment. I could find a location in town that will charge as little as $510. I could go to the biggest hospital in the area and pay $2,500 if I really wanted to, but I could get the same treatment, the fair average price of $750, $756. Okay. This one is a surpriser. Chemotherapy. How much should chemo really cost? Well, the intravenous version, which is the most common, where they actually plug an IV in and inject the chemical into your body, is only about $209 on average. Again, you can pay a whole lot more if you go to the local hospital. Now, this does not include the cost of the hospital room. I am going to get into that part a little bit later, okay? But chemo isn't nearly as expensive if you know what it really costs. Here's the other version, the what's called the subcutaneous type, or the intramuscular type. It's even less expensive. Now, let's go over here and look at hospitalization for chemo. The fair price for a hospitalization is $8,500. You could pay over 20 grand if you go to the local nearest hospital, because that's just kind of what everybody thinks of. And if you have an inefficient insurance product where exorbitant billing is just the way they like to do business, then yeah, they're going to put you into that really expensive situation here. Well, you don't have to pay that much. Here is what you could be paying for the same exact service. How does that break down? Well, on the bottom of the page for a healthcarebluebook.com page, they break it down as to what these costs really mean. And what this is showing you is that this is the price for a 3-day hospital admission. So that's less than $3,000 per day. So please keep that in mind. That's less than $3,000 a day for the actual hospital visit. Okay? So now let's look at a more realistic cost here. Okay, let's look at an actual case. What would a double mastectomy, a total mastectomy cost? Okay, $15,300 is what the average fair price should be. Again, if you go to the local biggest hospital, you can expect to pay over $30,000 for that procedure. How do those costs break down? Let's go down here and look at the price details. The hospital room is going to cost $12,650, and that is going to include some intensive care unit. This is for a 2-day admission only, so they're going to send you out after 2 days to go home and recover, but this is going to be an ICU visit, I'm sure of it. The physician is only going to charge a little less than $2,000 on average. They would love to get more, but when transparency in pricing keeps them honest, this is what it's really going to cost. Anesthesiologist is going to be about $754. And so when you add all those three numbers up, we are at approximately $15,300. Okay. Now, let's look at a plan that I offer and see how it covers these individual things. Okay. This is a particular health insurance product I offer called a defined benefit plan. This type of plan discourages the exorbitant billing, and it keeps the providers in check with paying for individual service amounts. This is built on truth in pricing and transparency, and it works really, really well. So, for example, for that hospital visit for the 3 days of chemo, I want you to see that even my middle product here, I don't sell this one, but I'm going to focus on this one. This middle product here would pay $3,000 per day for a night or for a day in the hospital. So if you're in for 3 days for a hospital visit for chemotherapy, this one here, okay, a 3-day visit, this is less cost than the benefit that this insurance product would pay. Okay, $3,000 times 3 is $9,000. $9,000 is more than the cost. So that's fantastic there that you could get away with your insurance covering the entire amount. Okay, now let's go back here and let's look at what the cost would be if you had to go to intensive care. So if you're in for a sickness, which is what cancer would be, and you had to have the mastectomy, this is $3,000 per day plus $4,500 per day for intensive care. So add the two together, that's $7,500 per day. So your 2-day hospital visit, this plan would pay $15,000 toward that hospital visit, where the real cost, we're going to come down here and look at it, it would be $12,650 is what the fair average cost would be of just the hospital portion. Okay, so $12,650. The benefit amount is $15,000. That's these two numbers times 2. So you're going to have $2,400 or so left over. That is your benefit to use for other services that you want or to pocket it. Okay. Now, we also haven't talked yet about what it's going to cost to pay the doctor and the anesthesiologist. So we're going to go back over here because, okay, I'm sorry to jump around, but $1,900 for the doctor, $750 the anesthesiologist. What I want to show you is over here, this schedule here, the RBRVS schedule, that's what Medicare would pay a doctor for the exact same service. So if a senior citizen who has Medicare were to go into the doctor for a total mastectomy, how much would the doctor be paid for that service? What this is telling us is that they would pay double what Medicare would pay. So that's pretty generous, okay? They would pay double that amount for their radiology, and they would pay for the anesthesiologist as well, okay? So this is a generous benefit. Now, one thing I'm going to be careful and I'm going to say is that I would never guarantee that you would not be out of pocket some amount of money, okay? But what my point here is, even if you ended up owing a couple or $3,000 or $4,000 after all the insurance settled, that's a blessing, because if you on a plan like this can pay hundreds of dollars per month less and get rid of the crazy big deductibles that you have on your current plan, and you still are out of pocket the same at the end or less than what you'd be out of pocket for your current plan, you win. You are financially better off, because not only are you out of pocket less, but this plan also has a negotiating service attached to it, where if you have any balance remaining, they will go to the providers using transparency and truth in pricing and try to negotiate away any remaining balance. They will get it down to as little as possible, and they will try to make it go away if they can. So there is no reason in my mind for you to stay on an overpriced major medical plan that's designed for exorbitant, inefficient, and frankly disingenuous billing, where you could be on a plan that's going to cut your premium by 40 to 60% per month, get rid of the crazy big deductibles, allow you to use your plan for simple things like doctor visits and urgent care and mammograms and colonoscopies and things like that without having to satisfy some big crazy deductible, but at the same time still provide you adequate coverage for something as serious as cancer. Now, I'm going to go back real quickly to the benefit amounts here, for example, on the chemo and on the radiation, okay? Because this is $756 per treatment. The chemo is $209 per treatment. That's a per day thing, okay? But look right here, even on my middle plan, they will pay up to $1,500 per day. So this is, the benefit amount is double what the radiation should cost, and it's about 7 or 8 times as much as what the chemo should cost. So this benefit amount is generous. This one is even more generous on the higher end benefit as well. So I'm very comfortable that this plan would do a great job covering somebody for cancer, leave money potentially in their pocket to help pay other bills. Because the one thing I want to point out is these benefit amounts are fixed benefit amounts. If you go to the hospital and it only costs, if it costs $2,500 to be in the hospital per day and the benefit amount is $3,000, you get to keep that additional $500 per day. So that's money you could use to pay some of these other costs that might crop up somewhere else and help minimize the total bill that might remain at the end of all the insurance settlement. So please keep that in mind, that these defined benefit plans might actually do a better job of covering you in a case of something serious like a cancer or heart disease or a car accident or something like that, because you won't have big deductibles, you won't have big co-insurance after the fact, you're not going to have the bigger premiums, and you'll have more money in your pocket while potentially having better first dollar coverage. So please keep all of that in mind. Reach out to me if you'd like to learn more about how it might help you in your particular circumstances, because I typically can save people 40 to 60% on their premiums, get rid of the big deductibles, get rid of the co-insurance, and put them in a better protected situation. So let me know if I can help. Thanks very much for your time.